Our world, dear friends, is a world of money, and money is the power in it that allows us to control the behavior of billions of people without resorting to violence. The power of money lies, first of all, in the willingness of most people to sell everything for this money, including their own lives, in some cases. And when people unconditionally submit to money and the laws by which this money works, power is born, the very power that rules the world today. You can buy many people for money, you can buy their knowledge, time, work. People accept the laws by which money works and obey them unconditionally, even despite the sometimes obvious injustice and one-sidedness of these laws. And the fact that they are not perfect, these laws, can be understood by such phenomena in our lives as wealth and poverty. Not always rich people are hardworking, honest and useful for our society, people who work for its good and receive a well-deserved reward for this. Very often, unfortunately for some of us and fortunately for others, many people in this life come to wealth through deception and violence, which in our time are dressed in a beautiful wrapper to give them legitimacy. Nevertheless, most of what we have in our lives today, especially luxury goods, we have thanks to money. And this means that for the sake of this money, someone deceived someone, suppressed, crushed, beat, used, had, in the end. Money, it doesn't fall from the sky, right? It's collected from people, one way or another. And the most valuable thing of all that we have today, thanks to money and the power it has, is a working system in which each of us has a chance to get ahead in life. After all, you must admit, the opportunity to earn money in large, very large quantities, albeit tiny, is still available to each of us, and therefore, I believe, there is no point in talking about the absolute viciousness of the monetary system. It is better to properly study the laws on which the power inherent in money is based and try to use this power for your own purposes, thereby making your life, better. What is the basis of the power of money? What do we base the power of money on? Well, what is any power based on? It is clear that it is based on the subordination of other people to this power. People accept someone's conditions, voluntarily or by force, and begin to live on these conditions. You know that any power is born where people begin to obey someone or something. As long as there is no submission, there is no power, but as soon as people begin to obey someone's rules, power is born. And in our case, the power that money has is no exception. It is possible only where people are ready to work for money, ready to accept the rules by which money itself works, ready to sell their goods and services, their time, and even their own ass for money. Power is based on authority, force, laws, ideology, and money, as we see, has all these things. Remember once and for all that the power of money over a person appears only in those cases when a person sells something for money. And when a person is ready to sell absolutely everything for money, then he becomes a slave to money, and it completely subordinates him to its power. And if you consider that there are always some people behind money, then it turns out that a person becomes a slave to other people. Of course, we can and should sell something for it. We need to sell something for money in order to live by its laws, but damn, not everything should be sold. In any case, you can keep your ass for yourself. You will say that, supposedly, there are people placed in such conditions when there is nothing else to do but sell themselves completely and utterly for money in order to survive. Yes, such situations happen in life. Well, you don't need to bring it to such situations. You don't need, at least today, in the 21st century, to be an idiot, with all the abundance of information that surrounds us, to drive yourself into a difficult situation. If we are illiterate people, stupid people, then we can be easily controlled, no matter by what means, by force, by religion, or by money. As long as people obey money, money will have power and authority, but as soon as this obedience is broken or disappears altogether, money will lose its power over people and turn into trash. But no one needs this, not those who create and manage money today, not each of us. Why? Because if not in money, then what will people believe in, what or whom will they serve, what goals will they begin to set for themselves, by what laws and what values will they begin to live? I do not think that religion or slavery is the best alternative to money, and then, we also somehow need to exchange goods and services in order to develop the economy and progress. And so far, it is impossible to do this without money, although there have been attempts in history to abandon them, money. The communists, for example, wanted to abandon money, they wanted to, but did not abandon it, because they could not offer anything more serious. So money has power not only due to people's faith in it, but also due to the obvious need we all feel for money, and not so much for money itself, but for the laws by which it works. These laws are not perfect, often unfair, in some cases even immoral, but at the same time, they allow our global system to work more or less stably. And if there is something better than money that can replace it, then this something, quite possibly, will someday replace it, money. But for now, as you can see, there is nothing, and we do not know how to communicate with each other in business language except through money. And this means that we will endow money with power and authority, feeling the need for everything connected with it, and, of course, for money itself. Brute physical force is also a reliable and obligatory support for the power of money, because there are enough smart guys in our society who are able to put their own money into circulation or convince people not to attach much importance to state money. But such smart guys don't have many chances to shake the current power that stands behind money, and at the same time the fragile stability in our society. These chances, one can say, are practically non-existent, because for such things they will simply have their heads torn off. In local situations, these things are done by security forces or bandits, in the sense that they tear off heads or put cunning and wise people in cages, and in global situations, this is done by the army and navy, which can throw bombs at some country that refuse to play by someone's rules and obey some specific currency. Well, if you closely follow what is happening in the world, then you can see for yourself what methods are used to ensure power for money. In general, I believe that the power that money has is no different from any other power. In the Middle Ages, those who questioned the power of the church were simply burned at the stake, declaring the overly literate people heretics. The communists, too, treated quite harshly those who doubted the strength and adequacy of their ideology. Well, any modern political power introduces caesura and introduces special laws that limit overly smart people, so as not to lose their power and authority. In other words, power is power, it cannot exist without violence, so behind money there is not just a powerful ideology, not just faith in the golden calf and the laws we need to live, but also violence. But I nevertheless attach a deeper meaning not so much to the faith and or violence that provide money and the laws by which it works, power, but to the objective necessity of our society for these laws by which we all live today. You see, no power can last long on force and lies alone, therefore, if we all did not benefit to some extent from the presence of money in our society, we would have long ago destroyed the power that stands behind it. But we do not do this, because it is also beneficial for us to have money rule us, because without it we can very quickly turn into savages. You do not believe that this can happen? Well, then read on in this article, I think I will be able to prove it to you. Why do we need the power of money? People who criticize the authorities, no matter what and where, often cannot offer anything in return for this authority. Well, there are such crazy ideas as the power of the people or life without money according to God's laws and similar nonsense that has nothing to do with reality. But in reality, society without laws, ideology, culture, education, without various unspoken rules that most people adhere to of their own free will, cannot exist. One way or another, there must be some power over people to regulate the relationships between them, to organize and control them. In our society, there is an opinion that man is a rational being. In reality, this is not so, and any normal psychologist or sociologist will tell you this. Man has never been a rational being, he has always been just a more complex being, capable of performing more complex tricks, and also a being that is much better trained than any other animal, but in no way a rational being. Man is inclined to become intelligent, we have such an ability, developing which, we can become truly intelligent beings. But without developing this and other abilities, we are not much different from laboratory rats, which can behave more or less intelligently if certain conditioned reflexes are developed in them. And that is why I am sure that the person who once invented money certainly understood human nature perfectly well. He understood that money would not just be a means of exchange, it would become the power that would allow some, especially literate people, to subjugate human resources and use them at their own discretion. Just as scientists manage to organize the movement of rats in a maze, when their behavior becomes seemingly reasonable, in the same way, money allows us to organize human beings, making their behavior also seemingly reasonable, but not reasonable in reality. People, as they were savages thousands of years ago, so they remain so. It is just that before there were no all these computers, mobile phones and similar things, but today they exist, and therefore someone imagined himself a rational being. Well, whoever and what he thinks about himself, the power, meanwhile, that money has over a person today, it must be said, is stronger than ever. And we must recognize our need for this power, because without it, the world would be ruled by completely different laws, which, most likely, would be less humane towards us. We must admit that this power of money in itself is vitally important to us. Because we need stability in the financial system, we need order in society, some kind of social stability, because even minor problems in the global economy or in the economy of a single country entail serious social problems, including the collapse of empires and anarchy. And we do not need anarchy, because with it, not only will there be no development of society, with anarchy, on the contrary, society will begin to degrade at a rapid pace. Most people are not capable of making decisions on their own, they can only obey, they are trained to follow the orders of other people. But they do not do them just like that, but for money, well, this is, as a rule, why we get, thanks to money, a certain system that allows you and me to feel more or less calm in it. I say more or less, because such aggressive and selfish creatures as people cannot create an ideal society, at least for now. A person must be controlled and stimulated to work somehow, so that he, a person, does not always do only as he wants, to the detriment of other people. And a person can be controlled either with a stick, that is, brute physical force, or with some ideology. For example, you can instill in him the idea of the power of money, which he will accept and which he will then be guided by in life. You and I know how unstable the power of brute physical force is. In the short term, of course, it is quite effective. You can intimidate all people, shoot others, send them to camps, force them to work for a pittance, and through such merciless exploitation of people, solve some current problems, in the same economy, for example. But, in the long term, when such intimidated and downtrodden people completely lose all interest in life and turn into real cattle, the benefit of their exploitation begins to decline. Moreover, in intimidated and oppressed people there is a lot of hatred towards the one who put them in such a position, and at the first opportunity such people will tear the tyrant to shreds, and at the same time all his entourage. Therefore, it is quite obvious that it is much better to stimulate people with money, putting them before a choice, either a carrot or a whip, will become an educational tool for them. And for the people themselves, I believe, it is much more interesting to be under the power of money than under the power of force. After all, this power is not just some kind of dependence of a person on some papers or numbers on a computer. These are also some rules of the game, playing by which he, an ordinary person, can really win a good life for himself. Think for yourself, Do these rules not meet our interests? Are they as cruel as, for example, the laws of nature, in which most of us, due to our weakness, would not find a place at all? You see, this world needs some rules, some kind of power is needed so that from all the chaos reigning in it, it would be possible to make at least some kind of order. If a person does not want to obey money, then he will be subjected to force, under which a person receives nothing at all, except the opportunity to serve the master. Money, no matter how dirty it is, no matter how much lies and injustice it contains, nevertheless allows us, people, to more or less humanely distribute the resources we need for life among ourselves. And most importantly, having learned the laws by which money works, we can all become rich, respected, honored, and powerful people. You don't need to be born with royal blood to live a good life, you just need to study hard those skills that allow you to come to power and money. This is why we need the power of money, this is why we need to adhere to this very promising ideology, which, unlike the same religion, allows us to create paradise here on earth, and not in some heaven. And there is no need to be afraid of the word power, no matter what concept you put into it. After all, if we control this power with our intelligence and activity, and not just unconditionally obey it, then it will serve us, and not exploit us. In general, when we talk about money and power, we always remember some fat cats who rule the world, arrange wars and revolutions, print money backed by nothing in large quantities, and so on and so forth. It turns out that these evil bankers, with the prefix Jews, rule the world, and we did not know. So, this is who owns all the money in the world, and this is the real evil that prevents us from living normally. Right? This is the lie that some lovers of secret conspiracies and world governments instill in us? Well, that's not true at all. All these tales were invented for fools who always try to find someone to blame for their failures on the side, in the person of other people, and who themselves are much worse than all these bankers and similar behind-the-scenes ghouls. No, I don't want to say that all these conspiracies and all sorts of secret organizations don't exist, of course they do, and they're not secret at all. The same NATO, the UN, the OSCE, and similar organizations, that's it, all yours, the Committee of 300, the Bilderberg Club, Skull and Bones, the Masons, the Illuminati and whatever else we have. It's not about these organizations, not about what they're called, and not about what goals they pursue, it's about what kind of world we see with their existence. Do you think that you and I, ordinary people, could create a better world? Do you think our laws would be fairer? But look at what's happening in those corners of our planet where there is no authority other than that established by thugs with machine guns. Read about what happened in New York on the night of July 13, 1977, when the lights went out in that city. And I'm not even talking about the chaos that reigned in Mother Russia in the 90s, the wild, as they call them, 90s. That is, I want to say that the power that stands behind money, with all its imperfections, is somehow more preferable for us than the chaos and anarchy that arise where this very power does not exist. Think about it, because everything in this life, as they say, is known in comparison. Meanwhile, no power on our earth is absolute, everything has its limitations, and the power of money has them too. These limitations are connected with the fact that not everything and not everyone can be bought for money in this world, and therefore, having this very money, you cannot have the power that is contained in it. Remember the words of Sergei Bodrov from the film Brother 2, tell me, American, where is power? Is it money? Well, my brother says it's money. You have a lot of money, so what? I think that power is in truth. The one who has the truth is stronger. What kind of truth do you think this is? You and I know that everyone has their own truth, and the one who is stronger is right, and therefore the one who is right is stronger. It would seem that everything is logical. But for money, for it, people sell themselves, they are ready to obey those who pay them, and this control of people can be called force, because control of people is power. So why is force in truth? In fact, truth is the same ideology as money. Therefore, if someone is ready to die for money, and few are ready to die for money, then there are also people who are ready to fight for the truth that they consider to be the truth, and nothing and no one will stop such people. Except perhaps death. People die for their faith, right? People work for the sake of bringing to life some great idea, according to their convictions. Here you have strength, here you have power. But when we talk about truth, we mean such a thing as justice, social justice, first of all justice, for which one can fight, for which one can even die. Hence, the idea voiced by the main character of the above-mentioned film that there is power in truth, that is, power in the idea that people are ready to follow. Let's say if you come to me with money to buy something from me or by me, and I refuse to sell you anything, your money will lose all power over me. And in the modern world, not everything and not everywhere can be bought for money, otherwise, the Americans would have bought up everything that interests them long ago, and our Russian oil and defense industries and all our officials and everything in general, because they print their dollars in simply gigantic quantities. Think for yourself, why the hell spend huge amounts of money on military needs, when with this same money you can buy up all the main resources of a potential enemy in order to weaken him or even destroy him? In our country, they sought up missiles, under a drunken president, for green paper. And if you can print money and buy everything you need for it, then why doesn't this happen? Why can't people with big money buy everything and everyone? That's the thing, no one will sell you anything that has a real value, and money, like gold, has value only when you can get something useful in exchange for it. And if I don't sell you various resources, my labor, my time, or sell you anything at all for your money, then your money will turn into trash, and all your power, backed by this money, will simply evaporate. So much for your power and money. As long as people believe in money, as long as they play by the rules by which this money works, the one who has a lot of money will have both power and authority. But this will not be absolute, universal, or ubiquitous power, because there are smart people in the world who do not sell themselves for money when it is not profitable for them, and who do not sell for it what is of real value. Nevertheless, this will be a very serious power, I mean the power that is contained in money. But to preserve it, violence and brainwashing will always be used, so that no one in this world dares to doubt the power and authority of money, or rather, the power and authority of those who stand behind it. Not all people are so dark as to worship false religion, money, when it is not profitable for them, communism or capitalism, and even brute physical force. Therefore the problem of the power of money is precisely that in our society, there are smart people who are capable of pursuing their own policy, independent of the system. When there are only fools around, and you are the only smart one among them, you, of course, feel good, you can control fools, you can get whatever you want from them and no one will encroach on your position, no one will question your power over the crowd. But if a smart person appears in this crowd, you will have a problem, because he will not see you as a god or someone more than just a man, and he will not want to obey you. Moreover, he can intercept control of the crowd from you and make it serve him, not you, and so that you do not interfere, he can destroy you with the help of the crowd. And for you, this is a problem that you cannot always cope with. This is exactly how people think who have both money and power, and who do not want to part with all this. That is why, without the force of arms, without violence, without laws, the power of money is easy to shake, and there are people in our society who are capable of doing this. Another thing is that, as we have found out, for most of us there is no need to give up this power that money and the people who control it have, because we do not need the alternative, in the form of chaos and anarchy. As for how we can and should change those imperfect and, in some cases, frankly unfair financial laws, which, I believe, have reached the point of absurdity and simply hinder our lives. This is the topic of my future articles. So, stay tuned for site updates. How to use the power of money. Any power can be used by any person for their own purposes, even if they do not understand this power and do not relate to it in any way. So the power of money can be used to solve certain tasks and/or problems, as well as to achieve certain goals in life. To do this, you need to direct the financial resources you have in the right direction. That is, you need to be able to invest money wisely, and to earn this money, you need to be able to use human resources willing to sell their labor for money. That is, if you need money, you do not need to study to do something yourself, as we are mainly taught in school and college, but to learn to organize other people and manage them in order to earn money with their help. And the money earned in this way should be directed, first of all, to advertising yourself and your services. Through the same mass media, you need to make a name for yourself, as well as to bribe people who are useful for your business, and you also need to spend money on fooling those at whose expense you earn money. That is, you need to sponsor, if not schools and universities, as is done in America, then at least some courses where your potential clients will be brainwashed. And as you thought, this is how the power of money is born, and this is how smart people manage it. And here, our Russian businessmen are offended that the authorities sometimes squeeze their business out of them or impose exorbitant tribute on them, not realizing that they owe their entire business to the state. Judge for yourself, give these guys a clearing, provide them with conditions, provide suckers, in the person of diligent workers and stupid consumers, protect their business, monitor the rules of its conduct, but when it comes to sharing, there is no one. You see, businessmen say that their business is their business. It turns out to be somehow impudent, don't you think? Look how much money the state spends to raise workers and consumers for all these businessmen, because 10 years of education of a person in school costs a lot of money. And if business needs highly qualified slaves, I mean, workers who dream not of creating their own company, but of making a career in someone else's, then, it is necessary to pay for another 5 years of education in a university for some categories of citizens. Plus, all this propaganda on TV, how much it costs, and what you get is a brainwashed worker, inclined to submission and at the same time a dull consumer, ready to easily part with his money. These are colossal investments, from which the state has every right to receive dividends. And watching over the meadow, is that cheap? It is necessary to maintain and develop an army in order to resist external aggression. It is necessary to maintain order within the meadow, with the help of trained people who must be properly prepared for difficult work and who must be paid. Also, it is necessary to protect your market from external threats in the form of cheap and high-quality goods and services that are trying to get into it. It is necessary to ensure order in doing business, so that fellow businessmen do not burn each other with soldering irons and do not roll into the asphalt. It is even necessary to create and feed the anti-monopoly service, which will monitor compliance with the rules in the meadow, so that some fattest pimple does not crush all the others. All this requires money and human resources, and then some ungrateful businessman starts shearing obedient sheep on this ready-made meadow, and says that this is his business, and that he is not obliged to share it with anyone. Many businessmen say that they created their own business, without any help from the state, and therefore the state, has no moral right to too big a piece of their pie. And at whose expense did you create it, gentlemen businessmen, this business of yours? And you yourselves, damn it, did not receive your education in the backwoods, independently thoughtfully reading the right books, damn it, someone taught you literacy, for a state salary. In general, it turns out that the system has created opportunities for people that allow them to earn big money at the expense of their own kind, and using these opportunities, you must not forget to pay for them. In the West, businessmen and bankers voluntarily participate in sponsoring all the components of their financial well-being that I have listed, which is why America has managed to create such a wonderful consumer society that happily parts with its money to please the local businessman. It is necessary to understand that the meadow must be created, it must be looked after, it is necessary to raise sheep for it, which also need to be sheared correctly so that they do not complain. In general, in order to reap something, it is necessary to sow something. And to everything ready, we are all healthy to come. This is how we subjugate the power of money, pumping it into important elements of the system that allow us, for some papers, to squeeze the life juices out of people and live well due to this. And if you do not understand all this, then you will not be able to use the power of money in your interests, but will be forced to submit to it.